So, my last Tennant Month video actually went down fairly well considering the subject matter and my feelings on it. However, I feel like for the second video I make for Tennant Month, or months actually, I thought it would probably be a good idea to do a more positive video on something 10th Doctor related, and also to get back in their good books, Titan related. Enter Once Upon a Time Lord. And I even have a second edition with an alternate cover. Actually, I got this one first, and then I got this one later, and I thought they were different ones, but it turned out it's the same release with two different covers. This one by Adam Hughes, whilst this one's by Christopher Jones, one of the artists of the Once Upon a Time Lord stories. Hello everyone, Nick here, and welcome to this review of the Doctor Who Titan Comics one-shot graphic novel, Doctor Who Once Upon a Time Lord, the first of what is supposed to be 3 stories written by Dan Slott. I'm not sure what's going on with the other 2, or we might find out, or maybe they've been quietly cancelled. I'm not really sure with Titan these days. So at time of recording, I've actually just finished reading this about a quarter of an hour ago. I did do a little quick research just now before recording the review. I did the pre-titles and the thing about the alternative cover first, and then I did a bit of quick research before jumping into this review. Not that there's much to research other than to confirm this was a one-shot graphic novel that didn't really have multi-parts like they usually do for the Doctor Who comics. They usually do like 4 or 5 parts, and they'll gather them up into a collection, which is usually in hardback or even a paperback form like these. But this is different. This time it's all in this collection. And we've just got 2 stories, Firelight and Rhyme or Reason, although Firelight is the slightly longer one and probably would take up maybe 3 of the individual comic releases, or maybe the digital versions that are released. So yeah, I wanted to do a review of another Titan comic collection after doing Ghost Stories, the first one I got for Capaldi Month back in August 2024, and I need to actually read my Titan comics collection, so doing reviews of some of them is a good idea, especially since Once Upon a Time Lord was one of the earlier ones I got before delving into collecting more as I went along. As mentioned, I got this version first, the alternate version, alternate cover version by Adam Hughes with the red background, 10th Doctor, Martha and TARDIS. But the main edition, Once Upon a Time Lord, I would get later. I think I got this one from Planet Cambridge, whilst the other one I got from a now closed comic shop in Bishop Stortford, where I live. I think it's where the office of our MP is now. Yeah, this main edition by Christopher Jones is the one that's plastered on the promotion for the most parts, and it's the main version with the red background one as the alternate version. But yeah, I somehow managed to get both accidentally. This is why I've been keeping a list for the most more recent gatherings of collection. Helps with what to get and what not to get, because I might accidentally get over. And unlike this time, I don't think any others have alternate covers for the collection releases. For the individual releases, absolutely, loads in some cases, or just a small handful for others. But for the collection, I think it's just this release and these 2 editions. Anyway, the story of Once Upon a Time Lord is that Martha Jones, companion of the 10th Doctor, is captured by these creatures called the Prometheus. I'm bringing them back so I can remember the name. The Prometheus are a race of beings that, like the gods of Ragnarok, they want you to tell stories. They want you to keep... And also, more recently, the story in the engine with the Barber and his World Wide Web, where they want you to tell stories, in the case of the gods of Ragnarok, to entertain you. So it's sort of like a mixture. This predates Story in the Engine, but it's sort of a mixture of gods of Ragnarok wanting to be entertained for all eternity, and the Story in the Engine wanting stories being told by people to keep the spider creature thing from going. It's sort of kind of a mix of that with the Prometheus wanting people to tell them stories so that constantly, so that they can gain some sort of energy power. And if people don't tell stories, if they stop telling the stories, or they're not very good ones, then they die or sent somewhere very nasty for all eternity. So yeah, sort of kind of a blend of Greatest Show in the Galaxy and the story in the engine with this. So it's very interesting. So these creatures trick Martha Jones whilst on one of the travels she's having with the Doctor. So the Doctor ends up having to send texts to her phone so she can tell a story to these creatures about his quest to try and find her. And we see the Doctor's quest to try and find Martha, involving him having to hook line a giant fish-like serpent eel thing on a planet where there's some Sycorax people as well. By the way, Titan love using the Sycorax. We talked about them appearing in ghost stories in the last Titan comics review on this channel. So the Doctor requires the help of Captain Polly, a parrot constantly attached to a human person, and they have to go and hook line this eel creature, and the Sycorax are cross because they wanted to capture the beastie, and the beastie caused the captain to lose an eye, so then they want the beastie even more. But this is only the start of this kind of ongoing quest. It's sort of like Infinite Quest as well, actually, come to think of it, in quite a few places with the Doctor travelling across time and space to try and get back to Martha and try and rescue her. So, okay, it's very much like towards the end of Infinite Quest, even more so in that aspect. But yeah, he's trying to find this Ossian ship, which is inside the beastie, and he has to try and get something from inside that. And then once he's got that, he travels to Egypt 1940, when the Nazis are trying to plunder Egypt, like we see in Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, the first one. He's joined by a British archaeologist, and she helps him get through the Ossian temple, or rather he helps her. The Ossians, as we may remember from Pyramids of Mars, they're not gods, but to the ancient Egyptians, they appeared to be gods. So they sort of take the Egyptian aesthetic and kind of blend in with the law. So the Ossians and the ancient Egyptians kind of meld together. How is it Dan Slott understands the Ossian ancient Egyptians relations and how that all comes together better than Russell T Davies? I'm looking at you, Empire of Death. But the reason the Doctor's actually in ancient Egypt is to get to one of the Ossian's sort of time-space travel portal things, to travel to what he perceives as the underworld, the land of the dead. And so he arrives there, and this is where this story is actually full of past monsters coming back, as well as the prior films. We've got a lot of old foes and old monsters back. We've mentioned the Sycorax, we mentioned the Ossians from Pyramids of Mars, and then in this final part of the story, we have a whole bunch of monsters. Many of them actually appear on the cover, by the way. And with the Ossians and the Sycorax on here, it was only a matter of time before more of the monsters turned up, and indeed we do. We have a whole page of monsters, and that's not even all of them. So we got the Gelth from Unquite Dead. We've got the Krillitane from School Reunion. We've got the Sycorax from Christmas Invasion. More so, maybe it's even the same ones. No, I think the Doctor saved them in the end. The ones from earlier in the story. These ones might be the Christmas Invasion ones. We got Slitheen, first appearing in Aliens of London and World War III. The Ood, first appearing in The Impossible Planet and Satan Pit. The Sontarans, specifically their Blue Series 4 design. Ice Warriors, more classic design here. The Robot Yeti, in what appears to be more of their Web of Fear 5 Doctor's design. We've got the Wirrin from The Ark in Space. The Draconians, for some reason, from Frontier in Space, because the Draconians weren't actually enemies. It was sort of rocky, icy relationships, but at the end of the story, they ended up being allies, so for the most part. But that's not even the most baffling one on this list. I'll get back to that. We've got some Vervoids from The Trial of a Time Lord, Terror of the Vervoids. We've got some Zygons, first appearing in Terror of the Zygons. And right at the back, we've got the Monoptera, one of those other buggy creatures from the Web of Fear. Did I say the Web of Fear? Oops, I meant the Web Planet. Sorry, the Monoptera and also the larvae gun from the Web Planet. But the Monoptera were allies, I believe. Like, the Monoptera helped them. They were being oppressed by the Zarbi. So, okay, I can kind of see the Draconians being on here, but I got to ask, why not the Zarbi instead of the Monoptera? Also, I think, unless that's another Krillitane, they've got Bok, the stone statue, on here as well, or another bat-like creature. I didn't really think Bok was alive. I thought it was a statue brought to life. I was going to quickly jump in here to say that on the Doctor Who wiki, Bok isn't mentioned as being one of the monsters in this underworld, Land of the Dead realm. So I don't know if that was another Krillitane or if that was just me. It's not a Weeping Angel either. They're not mentioned either. So I don't know. Could be another Krillitane that's just loose from the rest. Also, apparently the Pteroleptals are also in this group. Maybe with the Ice Warriors or the Slitheen, but I didn't really notice very well. But they're in the next story, so maybe the wiki guys got that, and girls got that mixed up with the next story. Maybe they didn't notice Bok either, but I was pretty sure it was Bok, but it wouldn't have made that much sense because Bok was a statue brought to life, so maybe not. But in which case, I'm not sure what it was, besides another Krillitane. So, yeah, not entirely sure there. Maybe the artists could shine some light on that, but yeah, those are the only ones I wasn't picked up on straight away. I thought one was Bok, but it might not be Bok. And apparently there were some Pteroleptals there, but I didn't notice them in this story, but they are the main villains of the next story. Anyway, back on to the video. Also, the Sisters of Plenitude and the werewolf turn up as well. The werewolf actually helps the Doctor get across the Land of the Dead as a debt to pay to the Doctor for releasing him into death when he got trapped into the beams of light caused by the Koh-i-Noor, which was a trap set by the Doctor, but it does mean the wolf is grateful that the Doctor was able to kind of save him.
The 10th Doctor rides the werewolf. Based.
I wish I could ride the werewolf.
So anyway, the wolf gets the Doctor across the land and away from the enemies until they encounter the Cybermen, led by the John Numic Cyber Controller, but the Doctor has a very clever way of getting around them. He uses the sonic screwdriver to call the Daleks to come and have a Doomsday rematch on the Cybermen, which, funny enough, Big Finish are going to be doing next year as well. Well, it's always round 3, I guess. We don't really know who wins in this round. We'll call it a draw. The final classic villain in the first of these two stories, because there's one more in the second, which we'll get to later. The final one is the Empress of Arachnos and her children from The Runaway Bride, which is an interesting choice, but the Doctor is able to ask for her help and uses the whole, oh, yeah, I did kill your children, but you died as well, so technically I've helped reunite you, which is a lot more, yeah, I know I did a bad thing, but I sort of did a good thing as well, sort of vibes, as opposed to, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, which I honestly think would have been more of the natural reaction if we were doing this story on telly, or even audio, but because we're doing this specific story in the comic, we kind of got to keep pace up a bit, so I'm guessing that's why we're doing it, but yeah, in a way, it kind of makes somewhat sense. Also, it's the 10th Doctor, he's got a bit of vanity on him, so even with his guilt of killing the Empress of the Arachnos, he can still also be like, yeah, but I also did you a favour, sort of a deal. Actually, that's how this thing treats most of the villains in here. Actually, the Empress of Arachnos is actually very helpful with giving the Doctor what he wants, come to think of it, considering, like, you know, what happened in The Runaway Bride. You'd think she'd be more resistant. Heck, she was more resistant in a Big Finish story with the 5th Doctor, where they hadn't actually met yet. In Runaway Bride, it was earlier point in time for both of them. It was the Time Lord Arachnos War, but they didn't have a personal thing with each other. Anyway, the Empress of the Arachnos tells them how to get to the world of the Prythians, so the Doctor is able to rescue Martha, and the Prythians are actually defeated in a very underwhelming way, come to be honest. The Doctor turns up, and so they just kind of lose the energy. I'm guessing it's because he's not a fictional character, so the fact that he just turns up and says, "Hi, I'm the Doctor," and they just lose all of their power because this was not a fictional story. Martha was telling them stuff that was actually happening. Yeah, gotta be honest, that is. I think. Well, I suppose it's explained at the end. I don't know. Maybe it could have been explained a little bit better, or there could have been a bit more of a. Maybe the creatures could have had another panel of them losing their energy or something. I don't know. I just feel it's a little underwhelming considering this was quite a significant journey for the Doctor to rescue Martha. At least in Infinite Quest, he says he had to wait 2.5, 2.75, or 2/3 years to get back to Martha. Nearly 3 years, but they had a bit of light speed at one point. So he had to do quite a bit of stuff before he was able to get back and rescue her from Balthazar. So, yeah, at least in Infinite Quest, even though they jump over what happened in between, he does say, it did take me this amount of time to get here. Whilst here, the resolution is actually quite... Yeah, it's over and done with really quick. Once the Doctor gets what he wants, yeah, boom, we're done. Although there is a really great panel where he does look like he's talking to the audience, or in the case of, in the story itself, the Prythians. I've got to keep looking at the back of the book for that, on the blurb. Yeah, there is a really great panel where he does look like he's talking directly to the you know what I mean. The Primordians, Primefs, whatever. The main villains of the story. Where he's talking directly to them, and by extension, us, the readers. So there is that really cool panel there. I also have to give a shout out to the first 2 pages of this story, which shows every Doctor, apart from the War Doctor, up to 10, telling a companion, or in the case of the first Doctor, he's just telling whoever's in the room, by the looks of it, that's about these creatures and to avoid being near them. So we've got the first Doctor. I'm presuming he's talking to Ian and Barbara, but it could literally be anybody else who travelled with the first Doctor.
London, 1965.
In the other Doctor's cases, he's talking to Jamie as the second Doctor. The third Doctor talks to Joe. The fourth Doctor talking to Leela. And interestingly, for whatever reason, the artists have decided that they would be in the secondary control room from season 14, but K9's also there. Even though in The Invisible Enemy, they got the updated primary control room. Does that mean we have to chronologically say that they went back to the secondary control room sometime during season 15 for this talk or something? That's not the only continuity error regarding the TARDIS here, because we got Doctors 5, 6, and 7 here at the same TARDIS control panel, so it's supposed to be the 5 Doctors one. But 5's talking to Nyssa, who left before 5 Doctors. So unless this is one of their adventures with her coming back to join him, Tegan, and Turlough during the Big Finish audios, this also doesn't really make sense. And by the sounds of the discussion, it actually sounds more like it's season 19 when she actually first joined, following Logopolis and Castrovel from the regeneration in between, and then after that, it sounds like it's after that. Also, Tegan and neither Adric nor Turlough are there either, so it actually feels more to be set between Time Flight and Arc of Infinity to me. But then again, that TARDIS console didn't come in until 5 Doctors. On the plus side, Doctor Who Magazine Comics' original companion, Frobisher, is the companion the 6th Doctor is talking to in the next panel, which is an exciting bit of fan service. Ace is the one the 7th Doctor is talking to, and then in the last of the classic Doctors panel, we have the 8th Doctor talking to Molly O'Sullivan from Dark Eyes, the Big Finish audio series. According to the wiki, this is her first time in a comic story, though original companions from Big Finish, Charlie Pollard and Lucy Miller, have also previously appeared in Titan Comics. Not so sure about Frobisher, or any of the other DWM comic companions, or any of the novel companions. Anyway, of course, we end with 9 and 10 talking to Rose and Martha, respectively, in a similarly joint TARDIS console panel to 2 and 3 and 5, 6, 7. Again, with 5s, that's a continuity error. Maybe if it was talking to Perry, or if we were going for a Big Finish original companion, Eramem, then that would make more sense. Or even Turlo or Chameleon. I'd be down for that. Continuity errors and slightly underwhelming conclusion aside, Firelight is a fun and enjoyable comic adventure that takes some great elements from the Infinite Quest and the Greatest Show in the Galaxy, and also from a future story that hadn't aired at the time of this coming out, namely the story in the Engine, and presents a fun love letter to RTD1 in that story, as well as also the following story, titled Rhyme or Reason, which for the 10th Doctor and Martha takes place right after the events of Firelight, but it's about the 10th Doctor telling Martha a story about how he, as the 9th Doctor, with Rose, stopped a pterodactyl attack on Earth in 2005, the pterodactyls being from the Visitation, of course. And so the Doctor and Rose actually end up talking in pterodactyl language, because the way that the story gets started is the TARDIS telepathic circuit. It's a bit on the brink after the last story with the Pythones, or whatever they're called. So the Doctor has to fix that, and that's what triggers the memory of him as 9 and Rose stopping the pterodactyl attack and them talking pterodactyl and all this. It's actually quite interesting seeing a story focusing on them talking in another language with the translation not always being so perfect. It's a fun little bonus story in there, as says as a backup story in the interview with Dan Slott. It's sort of like a bonus story to follow on from the main portion of the comic, and it's a fun one, a fun, enjoyable mini adventure with 9 and Rose that caps off with a nice coda with 10 and Martha, which also has a nice setup, a nice Easter egg setup to events at the end of Series 3 and the hints of one more Doctor Who villain who does not appear in the rest of this book, but it is a very, very nice hint and piece of setup to that villain and their role in Series 3. I will not spoil it, but you can probably, from what I just said, you could probably gather who and what I'm talking about. But yeah, it's a nice little, and also with some bits of dialogue as well. There's some nice foreshadowing to the Series 3 finale between them and a little Easter egg tied in with Series 3's finale. That's basically the stories, but aside from some nitpicks with the continuity errors at the start, as great as the fan service was, the art for this book is very good. We got Christopher Jones and Matthew Doe Smith doing the art for Firelight, and Mike Collins doing the art for Rhyme or Reason, and the art styles work really well. You can definitely tell a slight distinction of the art style going from the prologue of the story with all the different Doctors and companions, and the stuff at the fair on the alien planet where Martha gets captured by the Promorphes. I have to keep looking at that. And then we jump into the first of the 3 adventures the Doctor is going on to get to Martha and the Promorphes. Can't even pronounce it very well. I'm sorry. So yeah, there's sort of a distinction between art styles as the stories go along, but I think between the 2 artists, they do a very good job with Firelight, and then Mike Collins on the 3rd story as well. So overall, Once Upon a Time Lord is a fun, enjoyable, and breezy read. I think I read all of this in about an hour. I read the 2nd story in this one, but it was about an hour or so reading both stories and the Q&A with Dan Slott in the middle, and the previously bit with the 2 Doctors, the companions, the TARDIS at the start, etc. It's about an hour's read, and yeah, it was fun, it was breezy and enjoyable. Some great fan service, even if not all of the continuity was correct in the art. And yeah, and it's good stuff. I won't say it's an incredibly perfect story, but I think it is a pretty good one. I think I was going to go with a 9 out of 10 for this, but considering the underwhelming finale, I think I might give it a high 8 out of 10. A good, enjoyable pair of stories and a fun romp. Whether Dan Slott will be writing more stories going forward, or if the 2nd and 3rd ones have been scrapped, cancelled, or just put on hiatus, I'm not really sure of that. I didn't really find any information about that. I found information about that was going to be a whole mini-series in itself when doing research for the previous video, actually. And yeah, I don't really know what's going to go on with the other two, if they'll happen. Who knows? Maybe we'll get something. I think after this, the only releases we've had since have been the Doomsday comic collection, the collection of the stories in Doomsday. I think that was after this, although the individual releases might have been before. And the 15th Doctor ones, as well as the upcoming Circuit Breaker ones with the Fugitive Doctor when they get started later this year. Apparently, this was actually supposed to come out in April 2022, but it got delayed to July 2022, then October 2022, and then 3 separate dates in October 2023 before finally settling on November 2023. In fact, it looked like it was almost every week it was being pushed back in October 2023. I think 3 of the 5 Mondays of that October it was supposed to be for, and then it kept being pushed back a week or two, and then eventually on the 7th of November for its actual release. So I'm not really sure what happened to get this delayed by over a year and a half. Like, this is the No Time to Die of Doctor Who Titan comics regarding release delays. But unlike No Time to Die, I don't really think the COVID pandemic was an excuse this time round. So I'm not really sure what happened here. Maybe that's probably why the other two haven't materialised yet. Whatever the delay was with this, or maybe they're also delayed. But like I said earlier, and in the last video, Titan have started slowing down with their Doctor Who content after the 13th Doctor Year 2 was kind of cut in. Well, 1/3 of it was cut off entirely, and another third became its own thing that was somewhat tied to the first third of the second year. So ever since then, and doing the annual event, comic runs and collections, they seem to be slowing down. Even the 15th Doctor, as I mentioned in the previous video, just seems to be getting a run of 4 comics in one, but make a collection each year or so, if not even each year, because the first run was 24, and then the second run was 25 to 26, and the collections would be 25 and 26. So not even so much 15th Doctor's years 1 and 2, so much 15th Doctor runs 1 and 2. And post Circuit Breaker, I'm not sure what they're going to do with no series on the horizon and with no incumbent Doctor, unless Billy Piper really is the next Doctor, but we'll find out at Christmas. Or hopefully sooner. Yeah, I don't want to put this on a negative ending, because I think Titan Comics have done a really great job with telling more stories with mostly New Who Doctors, but a couple of classic Doctors as well, and a lot of fan service, and there's been a lot of stories that have resonated with fans. Like Big Finish, many fans consider them to have written stories superior to some on television, most on television, and they've done so many releases for Doctor Who, specifically for Doctors 10, 11 and 12, a few for 9, a couple of the classic Doctors as well, a couple of bonus, and 13, couple of bonus stories in there like this one. The 15th Doctor they've done some for, and some for Torchwood, and re-releasing the IDW comics as well, not to mention being a fantastic merchandise partner, especially with Forbidden Planet stuff. But in recent years they seem to be slowing down a lot, and I'm not really sure why. I don't really want to end this video on a negative note though, so I will say that they've done a great job over the last few years, and may they carry on doing so with whatever they do release in the future. And I will absolutely be reading some more of that, if not trying to get through all of it at some point in time. I want to read Empire of the Wolf and or Origins, the Fugitive Doctor one, next, because Empire of the Wolf could maybe tie into what's going on with Billy Piper, or if not, well, it'll be a fun read anyway, and we'll see how it goes. And Origins, because it's a Fugitive Doctor story, want to give that a read, especially before Circuit Breaker comes around. And of course, the Time Lord Victorious and Doomsday portions as well, because of the multimedia events. But really, we want to go and check out all of them at some point. I've still got a few to collect, but we'll absolutely try to get through them all when possible. I'll have to get started on that then, I guess, because I've only done 2 so far, including today. This one today. Collected them for a few years, only read the 2 of them. Or 3 of them, because this counts as 2. Oh well. You know what I mean. Anyway, thank you for watching this video. Sorry if it went on a little bit longer than hoped. I did want it to be a bit shorter, but maybe not. Oh well, that's it from me. Hopefully this video gets me back into the 10th Doctor fans' good graces and the Titan Comics fans' good graces. And the next video I'm hoping to do will be the 14th Doctor Expanded Media Stories video, where I will talk about the small number of 14th Doctor Expanded Media Stories outside of his 3 television stories and his minisode. Maybe it's not so much Liberation of the Daleks, because I think Thomas wants to do a video on that, so I might only briefly touch upon that and let him talk more about that in detail.
Yes, I'm reviewing Liberation of the Daleks, and that entitled 14 and to sort of Donna DWM comic story. So I guess that makes your job a bit easier for the next time, but if not, then prepare to blame me. Or Rob. Or Will. Or John. Or Big World, but just blame Big World then. Anyways, I guess I'll be seeing you, my friend. Bye-bye.
But the rest I'll definitely talk a bit more about. Not that that's much besides that. But that's a video for another time. See you guys then. Goodbye.